welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and these are the cards that I will be putting in my Jund Commander decks. Continuing on with my series, doing the black, green, and red combination, and as usual, I'm talking about the cards that I'm going to put in likely no matter what I'm doing in my deck, right? Certain cards you're going to put in your deck no matter what. There's always going to be some wiggle room, but this is the stuff that I'm typically going to go after. It's the template. That's what I call it. It's the cards that I put in my deck before I start putting all the other stuff in there. Usually it's between 20 and 30 cards, and it's typically the removal, the ramp, and the card draw. Those are kind of the big three that I have to put in there, regardless of what I'm doing in my strategy, right? And as I like to do, I like to talk about what these certain color combinations do well and do not so well. And of course, because we have three colors, each color can do something really well, which makes the overall color combination do that thing pretty well. And Jund is one of those color combinations that doesn't have a whole lot of holes, and I would say the main reason why is because of the black and the green. I think black and green are probably maybe the best two color combination, so any three color combination that has them is going to be doing just fine. And the reason why is because removal is not really an issue for you at all, whether it be creature, artifact, enchantment, pretty much any permanent you can handle in those colors. Card draw is not going to be an issue at all because black and green both do that really, really well. Ramp is certainly not going to be an issue because green obviously is the best color at doing that. And you even have tutors, right? Black has, of course, all the best tutors, and green has a really great creature and land tutors. So really not a lot of holes in the Jund game for sure. But let's get into the actual cards that we're going to be using here. Of course, we have to ramp. And for me, I'm typically playing the same cards, and in particular, Nature's Lore and 3 Visits I will put in my Jund deck. And the reason why is because they're searching for a forest card, and that means you can get those triomes, right? You can get those dual lands or shock lands as well because they have the forest card type. Triome is ideal. Zayator's Proving Ground being the option here for Jund. That is a swamp, mountain, and forest, so with either of those cards, I can go get it, put it directly into play. Now I'm fixed in all colors. Farseek will do the same, and Wood Elves will do the same, and maybe you want the Wood Elves because, again, if we look at the strategy of what we're doing, a lot of Jund decks are creature heavy, and a lot of them are sacrifice heavy, right? So maybe I want those creatures in play that I can be sacrificing. If I'm playing that Corval deck, for example, Wood Elves is a creature that's going to stick on the battlefield that I can go get a forest with, but then I can sacrifice it to get a trigger off my commander. And of course, Sakura Tribe Elder is even better the case because it's a creature that actually sacrifices itself. So I'm probably going to be putting Sakura Tribe Elder in there anyway. I think it's one of the best ramp options we have in the entire format because it is stapled on a creature, but it can be even better in some of those sacrifice creature themes, which Jund does quite a bit. Even if I just want a creature to be sacrificing later in the game, right? I can draw my Sakura Tribe Elder off the top. Now I have a creature that I can play, and unlike a 3 Visits, which I can just cast and then get a land, I can actually sacrifice my Sakura Tribe Elder to some other effect because I don't really need lands later in the game, right? It's why I love that card so much. So of course, ramp, not going to be an issue at all for you in Jund colors. Card draw is not going to be an issue for you at all. This one really comes down to what you're doing in your deck. Again, I'm going to be leaning heavily on black and green here. Red doesn't draw cards so well unless you happen to be in that impulse or exile tribal draw theme. Typically, you're going to be leaning on the black and the green for your card draw in a Jund deck, and black has its options. Obviously, there are lots of great ones. Again, depends on what you're doing. I'm going to use the green card draw more if I'm in a really heavy creature theme, whether it be I have a commander that has a really, really big power, or maybe I have just a whole lot of creatures coming into play and leaving play and whatnot, and I can use those green options for that as well. Or maybe, again, I am sacrificing a lot of creatures, in which case I can use both black and green for that, right? So a lot of options in Jund for drawing cards. You're certainly not going to have an issue with that in your Jund deck. Removal is where things get really, really interesting, and it was kind of funny as I was putting this list together. I actually don't have a Jund deck. I haven't had one for a long, long time, and of course, things have changed in the format quite a bit, and I was doing a lot of thinking about what are the choices I'm actually going to make. Obviously, Jund does removal really, really well. I would probably say it's the second best color combination at removal. I think think probably Abzan's number one because, of course, white's probably the best color for removal. So if you don't have white, it's pretty hard to be the best color combination at removal. I think Jund's probably second. Certainly it's towards the top of the list. You're not going to be lacking in options. That is absolutely for sure. So I thought, okay, well, if we have all these fantastic options for removal, what am I actually going to pick? What's going to be at the top of the list? So for board wipes, pretty easy. Toxic Deluge and Blasphemous Act, of course, two of the most popular board wipes in the entire format because they are two of the best board wipes in the entire format. Blasphemous Act is often going to cost 1 red mana and kill every single creature in play, and Toxic Deluge is going to cost 3 mana and almost always kill every creature in play, and not even if you don't want to, right? That's the great thing about Toxic Deluge is if you have, say, a big commander sitting on the table, you can avoid killing your own commander and pick a lower number here. Also gets around Indestructible, which can be really important in a board wipe as well. But where do you go after that? And I'm interested to know what you guys think. In a Jund deck, I'm putting in board wipes, and for me, I like 3 board wipes minimum, and all my commander decks, I don't think 2 board wipes is enough because the chances you're actually going to draw one in your 99 card deck isn't fantastic. So where do you go after 2? And I was thinking about it and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm probably going to go with Nightmare Unmaking. And again, it does depend on what you're doing in your deck. I just really like Nightmare Unmaking. First of all, it is an exile option, and exile is probably something that Jund doesn't do super fantastic. Again, you don't have white, which does that best. There is a lot more exile in black than there used to be, and this is one of the few board wipes that is going to be exiling, and I think it's nice to have an option in your deck for exiling if you happen to come across that Blightsteel Colossus or that Avacyn, or maybe your opponent just has a lot of protection spells, right? This will get around all that stuff. I also like the versatility of it, where you can choose the big creatures to go away or the small creatures, or you can manipulate the amount of cards in your hand to gain an advantage on which creatures you're hitting, right? Again, Toxic Deluge and Blasphemous Act are more likely to hit all creatures. I like to have a board wipe in my deck that's going to advantage me. I really like the board wipes that I can manipulate the outcome so that I get an advantage, and maybe I get to keep some creatures around, whether it be my commander or anything else. So I really actually like Nightmare Making. I think it's probably my third choice in Jund colors. All right, moving on to the targeted removal. And of course, I talk about it on my channel all the time. Beast Within is probably my favorite targeted removal spell in the entire format. I think it's probably the best. It hits everything, right? Literally every permanent on the battlefield, it's going to hit. And that's what I want in my targeted removal is versatility. And again, we got a lot to choose from. So what's number one doesn't really matter a whole lot. What matters is what we're actually putting in our Jund decks. Assassin's Trophy is probably going to be like number 2, number 3 for me. I actually did a top 5 removal in the format video, and Assassin's Trophy was in there. Again, it's hitting any permanent type. That's what we want. So that's going to be in the list as well. I really like Bedevil in black and red colors. It's one of the best removal spells. Instant speed, hits an artifact, creature, or planeswalker. So we have that versatility there, which I really like. Decimate, I am still going to play in a Jund deck. That's right. People have been shying away from this card. I can't for the life of me figure out why. 4 mana to destroy 4 permanents is incredible. The only downside, and I don't think it's much of a downside, is the fact that you have to have all these permanent types in play. I don't find that to be much of a drawback. You can even pick your own stuff if you really need to. I've never had that issue myself. And what I particularly like about it is if you have one person on board that is way ahead of everyone else, you can target them with all of these. You destroy an artifact, creature, enchantment, and land from that one player, and it really sets them back. It puts them back on the same level as everyone else very quickly. That's what I really like about it. Later in a game, it can just be such fantastic value. I'm also going to play Binding the Old Gods, and this is a card that I played a lot when it first came out, and I play a lot less now, but I'm going to start playing it again. I really think it's great, and in particular in a deck like this, and I will tell you why. So 2 black and a green saga, destroy target non-land permanent opponent controls. So this is 4 mana, it comes down, and it destroys any non-land permanent. That's pretty good. Again, versatility, that's great. 4 mana to destroy a non-land permanent is pretty darn good. But then when we get to chapter 2, search your library for a forest card. Put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle your library. And that's why I particularly like it here, is because it is a great land search option in a 3-color deck. It's again getting a forest card. So again, we can get that Triome or those shock lands or anything like that. So it's a great way to mana fix you. And then number 3, creatures you control gain death touch until end of turn. That can be really good too and works in a lot of decks. I think this is a very underrated card in the format. We're still going with the removal. I haven't put enough in my Jund deck yet. I'm probably going to play Terminate, and I'm probably going to play Hull Breach. Two more cards that have lost a little bit of popularity in the format. I still think are pretty good. 2 mana, destroy any creature at instant speed. It can't be regenerated. It really doesn't get much better than that. Doesn't really at all get better than that in Jund colors. If we're just talking about red, green, and black here, you really don't get better than 2 mana instant speed, destroy a creature, and it can't be regenerated, right? So this is probably the most efficient removal spell we have. And Hull Breach, 2 mana, I destroy an artifact and enchantment also. Again, I don't see anything better than that in these colors. I like the 2-for-1 possibility here. You can just destroy an artifact or enchantment here. It's not like Decimate, or I can destroy both. I really like that a lot. And of course, Vandal Blast and Nature's Claim are likely going to go in all of my red decks and or green decks respectively, right? Vandal Blast to me is just an auto include if you're playing red, and Nature's Claim has really become a go-to for me. I put it in all my green decks now. Again, super efficient, 1 mana instant speed, destroy an artifact or enchantment. It can really save the game in a lot of situations, and it can also save the game if you're about to die, right? You can actually use this on yourself to gain yourself for life if you're about to die. That can be a bit of a gotcha moment in a game as well. And if I'm playing a Jund deck, I am absolutely playing Unleash the Inferno. This is one of my favorite removal spells that I have yet to actually use because, of course, I don't have a Jund deck. I love it a lot. Came out in Streets of New Capenna. I love the versatility here. I love the uniqueness. And I think this card is criminally underplayed in the format. 1 black, red, and a green instant. Unleash the Inferno. Deals 7 damage to target creature or planeswalker. When it deals excess damage this way, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls with mana value less than or equal to the amount of excess damage. I sort of like the unique, interesting way that it's removing stuff. This is destroying 4 permanents, right? It can get a creature, planeswalker, enchantment, or artifact. And when I talked about this in a video a little while ago, I had a guy say, wait, how does this destroy an artifact and an enchantment and a creature and a planeswalker? It doesn't destroy all of them. It has the potential to, right? This has the same versatility that a Beast Within has, I guess, other than hitting lands, because you have the potential to, right? So I want versatility in my removal where there is a creature on the battlefield that I absolutely have to get rid of. This can do that as long as it doesn't have a toughness greater than 7. There is a planeswalker on the table that I absolutely have to get rid of because it's ruining the game for me, right? Maybe it doesn't allow me to search my library and I need to. This can get it off the table. Same with an artifact, same with an enchantment, but the added bonus here is I can get 2, right? This has the potential to get 2 permanents off the battlefield for 4 mana at instant speed. I like that a lot. And how I'm going to play this is I'm going to pick that creature or planeswalker that I really want off the battlefield. I'm going to hit that for 7 damage. And then whatever excess damage I have, if there is any, I'll just pick some enchantment or artifact on the battlefield. Hex Soul Ring only costs 1 mana, and usually there's one of those on the battlefield. So it's going to be very easy to knock off my opponent's Soul Ring as well on top of the creature that I'm actually targeting that I really want to get rid of, right? It's just added bonus. Or my opponent has, say, like that Rest in Peace or that Grafdigger's Cage that is really hosing my graveyard strategy that I'm playing. That's the card that I want to get rid of. So I'm going to pick a creature or planeswalker that is just kind of small so I can get enough excess damage to remove those permanents from the battlefield, right? Absolutely love this card. I think it's fantastic. It's an auto include for me in any Jund deck. But that is for the most part it. Those are the cards that I'm going to be putting in my Jund decks. Those are the staples, right? The auto includes. That's where I'm going to begin. I need card draw, ramp, removal. Those are the big 3, and that's what I'm going to be playing when I start out building my Jund deck, right? All those cards I just mentioned, I refer to as a template. I mentioned like 20 cards. That's where I'm going to start. Then I'm going to start building my deck on top of that. I'm going to start adding the cards in that fit with the strategy of what I'm doing. And maybe I need a little bit more ramp. Maybe I need a little bit more card draw. Again, depends on what your commander's doing. If I'm playing a Corval deck, I probably don't need more card draw because my commander's doing it, right? It's always going to depend on what your commander is doing, of course, but that's the basics. And I think if you use that for your template for building your Jund deck, you'll probably be in pretty good shape going forward. That is all though. Let me know in the comments below what you auto include in your Jund Commander decks. That is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.